Ever thought about what it feels like to live under the constant dread of war? Welcome to the everyday reality in Ukraine. Let's take a moment to unravel the complex tapestry of the situation in Ukraine. At the heart of this unfolding drama, we find an authoritarian regime in Russia, a juggernaut controlled by a dictator. This regime is backed by a network of oligarchs and secret services, a formidable alliance that continues to fuel the conflict. The fallout is catastrophic. The tragic loss of human lives, both civilian and military, is a grim testament to the escalating tensions. Every life lost is a stark reminder of the human cost of war, a cost that seems to be mounting with each passing day. But where is the West in all of this? Unfortunately, the promises of aid that once echoed with hope have largely been unfulfilled. Despite initial declarations of support, concrete action has been conspicuously absent. The world watches as Ukraine fights a battle that is bigger than one nation, a battle for the democratic values that we all hold dear. This lack of support extends beyond mere words. The absence of an industrial strategy for the production of weapons and ammunition to support Ukrainians is a glaring oversight. It's not just about providing the tools for defense, but about showing solidarity, about standing shoulder to shoulder with those in the face of oppression. Yet, perhaps the most disheartening aspect of this crisis is the indifference of the public towards the situation. The gravity of the situation seems to be lost in the noise of our fast-paced world. The pleas for help, the cries of despair, the stories of courage and resilience, they all seem to fade into the background. The cries for help from Ukraine seem to fall on deaf ears, a chilling reminder of the world's indifference. The unfolding drama in Ukraine is not just a geopolitical issue, it's a humanitarian crisis, a test of our collective conscience. As we move forward, we must ask ourselves, will we rise to the challenge or will we remain indifferent? Moving on to a region that has known no peace for decades, the Middle East. Here, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict forms the epicenter of ongoing regional tensions. It's a tale of two nations embroiled in a bitter struggle that has spanned generations, causing untold suffering and loss. The United States, a key player on the global stage, has shown a puzzling ambiguity in its stance. Its proposal for resolution at the United Nations has been criticized for its lack of clarity and assertiveness. This indecisiveness only adds fuel to an already raging fire, allowing the conflict to persist, with no clear path to peace in sight. But the real victims of this conflict aren't the politicians or the diplomats. They're the everyday people whose lives have been turned upside down. The humanitarian consequences are severe and far-reaching. Families are torn apart, homes are reduced to rubble, and the promise of a peaceful tomorrow seems like a distant dream. A refugee crisis has unfolded with countless individuals displaced from their homes, forced to seek shelter in foreign lands. The situation in these refugee camps is dire. Resources are scarce, conditions are harsh, and hope is in short supply. These are not just statistics on a page, these are real people with real lives, caught in the crossfire of a conflict they did not choose. Yet, amidst the turmoil, the international community seems to turn a blind eye. The cries for help go unheeded, the pleas for peace fall on deaf ears. The world watches as the Middle East continues to burn, the embers of conflict glowing brighter with each passing day. As we delve deeper into the complexities of this region, we must remember that every conflict has a human face. Behind every statistic is a story of survival, of resilience, and of hope. We must not forget the cost of conflict, the price that is paid in human lives and human suffering. The Middle East continues to simmer, a cauldron of conflicts with no end in sight. The powder keg that is the Middle East is a stark reminder of the urgent need for peace, for dialogue, and for understanding. And as we navigate these turbulent waters, we must strive to keep the flame of hope alive, for a world where peace is more than just a distant dream. Now let's turn our attention to the forgotten corners of our world. Sudan and the Democratic Republic of Congo. These nations are often overlooked in the global discourse, yet they are the scenes of some of the most profound humanitarian crises of our time. In Sudan, years of political instability and civil conflict have left the country in a state of turmoil. Regional powers and terrorist groups have exploited this instability, fueling the flames of conflict and exacerbating the suffering of the civilian population. The Sudanese people have been displaced, their homes destroyed, their lives uprooted. They live in a constant state of fear and uncertainty, their futures held hostage by the whims of those in power. Meanwhile, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, a similar narrative unfolds. This resource-rich country is plagued by conflict. Its wealth a curse rather than a blessing. Like Sudan, the DRC is a playground for regional powers and terrorist groups, with the civilian population bearing the brunt of their power play. The Congolese people live under the constant threat of violence, their lives scarred by a conflict they neither started nor can end. These crises are not natural disasters, but man-made catastrophes. They are the direct result of a lack of political stability and the involvement of outside forces in these countries' affairs. And the consequences are devastating for the people of Sudan and the DRC and for the stability of the region as a whole. But all is not lost. There is a role for the international community to play in promoting peace and development in these regions. This involves not only providing humanitarian aid, but also working towards a political solution that addresses the root causes of these crises. It requires a concerted, coordinated effort from all nations, putting aside political differences and focusing on the common goal of peace and stability. These forgotten crises remind us of the world's selective empathy, a mirror reflecting our collective failure. But they also serve as a call to action, a call to remember the forgotten, to stand up for the oppressed, and to work towards a world in which all people can live in peace. From Africa, we move to Asia, to the heart of a brewing storm: the China-Taiwan conflict. This is not a new conflict, but it's one that has been simmering for decades, ever since Taiwan broke away from the mainland in 1949. Today, the situation is more precarious than ever. China views Taiwan as a renegade province, a part of its territory that has been unlawfully estranged. On the other hand, Taiwan sees itself as an independent entity, with its own government, military, and constitution. It's a delicate dance, with each side asserting its stance, yet for the most part refraining from actions that could ignite full-blown conflict. However, the recent years have seen a sharp escalation in tensions. Military exercises, diplomatic jabs, and economic pressures have been upped by Beijing, signaling its impatience with the status quo. Taiwan, backed by its staunchest ally, the United States, has been pushing back, refusing to bow under the pressure. Now let's talk about the geopolitical implications of a potential conflict. If a war breaks out, it could send shockwaves through the global economy. Taiwan is a key player in the world's tech industry, producing a significant chunk of the world's semiconductors, which are vital components in everything from cars to smartphones. Disruption in this supply chain could lead to a worldwide tech crisis. Then there's the role of the United States and other global powers. They're placed in a tight spot. On one hand, there's the commitment to democratic Taiwan, and on the other, there's the need to maintain cordial relations with China, an economic powerhouse. It's a high-stakes balancing act with potential consequences reaching far beyond the shores of Taiwan and the mainland. As the storm brews, the world watches, holding its breath, waiting for the winds to shift. This conflict isn't just about two entities battling for sovereignty, it's about the future of democracy, the global economy, and the delicate balance of power in the world. It's a storm that could shape the course of the 21st century. Finally, let's reflect on what we, as global citizens, can do. We've seen the world stage fraught with conflict and uncertainty. Ukraine, the Middle East, Sudan, the Democratic Republic of Congo, China, Taiwan. Each region presents a unique set of challenges, but there's a common thread that binds them all together. It's the absence of a coherent political strategy by the West, a strategy that prioritizes peace over power, humanity over hegemony. We can't simply sit back and watch as the world burns. We can't turn a blind eye to the suffering of millions. We can't just accept the status quo. We need to push for change. We need to demand more from our leaders. We need a new strategy, one that's centered around promoting peace and security, not only in our backyard but across the world. But this isn't just about governments and politicians. It's about us. It's about each and every one of us. stepping up and playing our part in creating a more peaceful world. You see, peace isn't just the absence of conflict, it's the presence of justice, it's the presence of equality, it's the presence of understanding. And that starts with us. We can promote peace by raising awareness about these issues, by educating ourselves and others, by challenging the narratives that perpetuate division and conflict, and yes, by countering terrorist organizations, not with guns and bombs, but with words and ideas. We can use our voices to speak out against injustice. We can use our platforms to amplify the voices of those who are often silenced. We can use our resources to support organizations that are working towards peace and reconciliation. We can use our votes to elect leaders who value peace and diplomacy over war and aggression. Remember, the world is not just what we see on our screens, it's so much more. It's a complex web of relationships and interactions, of actions and reactions. And it's up to us to be more aware, more active in promoting peace. After all, peace begins with us.